a very good evening to you. And welcome along once again to Sweet and Swing here on Meg's Radio. My name's Howard Kane, with you for the next hour with some of the best sounds on the planet. What have we got? How about a bit of Max Jaffa? Haven't heard from him for a while. More classic motoring music. Our friends Ensa, Al Cohn. But we're going to start off rather lightly and politely. Good way to get going, isn't it? Very lightly and politely. The name of the track, indeed, by Earl Fatha Hines. Haven't heard from him for a while. The sort of modern, the father of modern jazz piano, in many ways. Earl there, heard in Chicago in 1939, and more pertinently, it was recorded on my birthday. I wasn't around at the time. You understand? It was a few years, not as many as I'd like. What 40s? That's 21, 23 years before I was born, to be exact. Terrifying. 1939 sounds like 100 years ago, doesn't it? And I know it's getting close to 100 years, but not yet. Yeah, don't dwell on it. You just feel older than you actually are, as it were. But in 1939 in Chicago, Earl with his orchestra, and Earl himself, well, as I say, he was by many standards seen as the father of the way modern jazz piano is played now. Earl Kenneth Fatha Hines, born in Pittsburgh in Pennsylvania in 1903, and his mum and dad both musical. His sister Nancy was a pianist as well. His dad, and this is the way he could have gone, his dad Joseph played the cornet in street bands and such like, and that was where Earl started out. He started playing the cornet, and like his dad, I suppose, like dad, father like son. But it was his mum who was an organist, like Fat Swallow. If you can think of Fat Swallow's mother, she was also an organist and a church organist and had a great influence on Fats' music. And it was Mum who persuaded him to take up piano instead of the cornet. It's not recorded what his dad thought of that. I hope there weren't any family rows. And in 1915, Earl majored in music at Shenley High School in Pittsburgh, where he was nurtured on a diet of classics and also the attorney exercises, those regular exercises on piano and music, and got a really rock-solid technique, which is brilliant. Tried a bit of both, but by the early 20s he'd left school and was already starting on his career in jazz. And then later on, throughout the 30s and 40s, right the way until 47, 48, he led a really innovative band playing around Chicago and New York with Ed Fox and great coast-to-coast tours. And lived on, of course, to a ripe old age. I think he lived to 100 plus, 101, something like that. I'll look it up in a minute, but I'm certain, or fairly certain, that Earl made his century. I think might even still have been playing. I don't know how long Max Jaffa lasted. I think he got to a reasonable age as well. Very different style of music. We're definitely going from swing to sweet straight away. So we're stamping our name on the programme from the outset. Sweet and swing. We've had some swing. In this case, it's swing and sweet. Swing with Earl Fatha Hines. Now we're going to have something more in the way of sweet, I guess. Oh, it swings in its own way. Max Jaffa and the Palm Court Orchestra with their Vagabond King selection. that's a bit of a Sunday ending, isn't it, to say the very least. Nonetheless, Max Jaffa and the Palm Court Orchestra. I don't know why that ended so suddenly, but we'll forgive him that. Well, we will for now in any case. Max himself, born of Jewish immigrants, of course, back in the early part of the 20th century, and started early, given a violin for his 6th birthday. And it's always said the die was cast when he heard Yasha Heifetz, difficult to say that, Yasha Heifetz at the Queen's Hall. And young Max Jaffa was there and heard him and loved it. And from then on, he always said his heart was set on becoming a professional violinist. And went on to Guildhall School of Music, and raised fees by playing in small groups at night and in cinemas and at Joe Lyons' Corner House on the Strand. And then the popular cafe known as the Pop, from where he went on to the Trocadero and succeeded the great Alfredo Campoli. And the Troc also were a top venue where Max's great hero Albert Sandler appeared. And he went on to bluff his way into leading the band for 4 years at the Piccadilly Hotel. Lots of bluff involved in music, you know. You just sort of say, yeah, I can do that, even if you can't. I'm not quite too sure how that works, but Max got away with it and had a wonderful life. And yes, a very different style of music, but great for dancing. And yeah, the Palm Court Orchestra. While we were listening, by the way, turned out I was giving you duff information. I was convinced Earl Hines lived to 100. According to Mr. Wiki, he didn't. He only lived into his 80s. So I'm obviously thinking of someone else. And it'll come back to me at some stage who it was. One of the great jazz pianists, certainly lived to a century or a century plus. But not Earl, apparently. Got into his 80s, but not beyond that. Wonderful story, though, when I was looking at that, as there always are when you start researching these things, about him playing for Al Capone. And yes, in the club he was, there used to be an upright, and Al Capone took the club over, and the upright was replaced with a £3,000 white Bechstein grand piano. And then Earl called all the band, Al Capone called the band together and said, listen, we'll give you all the protection you want, but you're like the three monkeys. You hear nothing, you see nothing, and you say nothing. And apparently Earl said, yeah, well, I sort of stuck with that. It was probably easier. How about a bit of June Christie?
My name is McNamara, I'm the leader of the band. And though we're small in number, we're the best in all the land. Oh, I am the conductor and we often have to play with all the best musicians you hear about today. When the drums go bang, the cymbals clang, and the horns will blaze away, McCarthy puffs the old bassoon while Dar the pipes will play. Oh, Tennessee toodles the flute, and my word, it's something grand. Oh, a credit to old Ireland boys, it's McNamara's band. Tra-la-la-la-la, tra-la-la-la-la, tra-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la, tra-la-la-la-la, tra-la-la-la-la, tra-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la, tra-la-la-la. Whenever an election's on, we play on either side. The way we play our fine old airs fills Irish hearts with pride. Oh, if poor Dunmore was living now, he'd make us understand that none could do him justice like old McNamara's band. When the drums go bang, the cymbals clang, and the horns will blaze away, McCarthy puffs the old bassoon while Doyle the pipes will play. Oh, Tennessee tunes the flute, and the word is something grand. Oh, credit to old Ireland boys, it's McNamara's band. Oh, tra-la, tra-la-la-la-la, tra-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la, tra-la-la-la-la, tra-la-la-la-la, tra-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da.
Ah, thank you, please, as they say. Thank you, please. I thought you'd enjoy that one. A little twofer for you there. June Christie, doing a bit of it sounded a bit like Ella or something there, didn't she? Doing a bit of scat, very nice indeed. And then moving straight on into our friends at Ensa, of course. Where else? Yes, you could tell. It's always good fun, isn't it? Johnny Green taking the vocals there with McNamara's band. I haven't heard that one for a long time. It used to be really popular, didn't it? A sort of pub-type music in many ways, isn't it? You can imagine it being played in the pub. Johnny Green, of course, known as the Pocket Crosby. Not Crosby in the Isle of Man, I think that's Crosby in Liverpool. Little Johnny Green, he sang with Harry Roy and Oscar Rabin, and that was before he even got into his teens, let alone out of them. So not a bad start. Went on to record with Billy Merrin, Geraldo, and Harry Roy again, appeared in the film Rhythm Racketeer, made more than 2,000 broadcasts before 1950. Toured Europe and the Middle East with Geraldo, sang with Harry Parry, and then in order to avoid confusion with the band leader of the same name, he became Barry Green, whilst he went on to tour America during the late 1940s. And then made a brief comeback quite recently in the scale of things for this programme in the early 60s. But I don't really think that ever amounted to much. But there he was, at his peak, I suppose, in the 1940s with the boys and girls at Ensa. What's not to like, as they say? 'Tis sweet and swing, H with you through until the top of the hour. And you won't need me to tell you who this is singing.
go. That's the way, if love must have its day, then as it came, let it go. Oh, no remorse, no regret. We should part exactly as we met. Just easy come, easy go. We never dreamt of romantic dangers, but now that it ends, let's be friends and not two strangers. Easy come, easy go. Here we are, so darling, au revoir. It's easy come, easy go.
Al Bowley, of course. Who else could it be? What a voice he had. What a great loss it was when he sadly lost his life in the war. But with that such lovely, rounded, warm, liquid, honey-like sort of voice, very warm and sort of caring. It's, yeah, it just sort of makes you go, ah, like a nice cup of tea, doesn't it? At least it does to me in any case. And I can't be alone because he was massively popular in his time. Can't have too much Al. We haven't had much of him late, so I'll keep some Al to hand, I think. Slip a bit more in between now and Christmas, maybe. Why not? If there's anyone you'd like to hear, of course, then let me know. It's not a request show per se, but we're always up to try and indulge our listeners in what they'd like to hear. So if there's anything you'd like to hear, a favourite artist we've never featured, someone you hadn't heard for a long time, a favourite track we haven't played for a while, or a different version of a track that you know that we haven't played, someone we'd like to feature and do a little feature or an idea for a feature, let me know. I'm here to help, as they say. Howard Kane at manxradio.com is the easiest way to get in touch. Well, the fastest way, certainly. Howard Kane at manxradio.com. All lowercase, Kane is C-A-I-N-E. Don't forget that all-important E or it won't get to me. Or, of course, you can put pen to paper, like John does from time to time, which is lovely to hear from him. Thanks, John. Always lovely to hear from you. Hope you're listening this evening. And Father Sean over there drops an email from time to time. Lovely to hear from people. So any thoughts, get in touch. So Howard Kane at manxradio.com, or if you want the old snail mail address, as they call it these days, it's Howard, it's Sweet and Swing, and that's Manx Radio, Broadcasting House, Douglas Head, and that's in Douglas, funnily enough, on the Isle of Man. Of course, where else would you find Manx Radio? And the postcode, I-M for Mother, 1, 5, B for Bertie, W for William. What could be easier, as they say? 1934, that was recorded, would you believe? 1934. Can you remember what happened in 1934? You're a better man than I, if you can, to be honest with you. Or woman, as the case may be. But Sir Oswald Mosley's fascist rallies ended in uproar. Winston Churchill warned the House of Commons of the need to rearm against Germany. Oh, goodness. That was, yes, good foresight there, wasn't it? King George V opened the Mersey Tunnel just across the way there in Liverpool, the longest underwater crossing in the world. And on Clyde's side, Queen Mary launched her namesake, the Queen Mary. At 82,000 tons, she was the largest ship afloat. Al Cohn on the saxophone. And again, one of those few I feature on this programme who I actually met. I saw him play in the Pizza Express back in the day with the old maestro in, I wouldn't like to say it. It was the old Pizza Express in London, in Soho, long before the new one, which currently resides there, when pizzas used to cost about £3 and something. Not that I was paying. The old maestro would have been happily buying them for me then. I'm trying to think of where it would be. Well, it would be probably in the late 70s, very early 80s, 79, 80s, somewhere around there maybe. And he said, let's go and see Al Cohn down there. Wonderful it was too. Really enjoyed it. Pizza was rather good as well. From an album which has the delicious name of, well, it's actually called Cohn on the Saxophone. Well, you can't help but think it would have been much snappier if they just called it Cohn on the phone. Would have been so much better. However, they went for the full name. Cohn on the saxophone. Al, of course, on the tenor. Hank Jones, piano. O.C. Johnson, drums. Milt Hinton at the bass. Terrific stuff. And he played both ways, actually. He played that old style, and he often played with much more modern stuff, though he admitted himself, he actually, when he was on his own or listening to music himself, he said he'd go back to the older style. He thought the solos were better, and they were more sort of tuneful, as it were. On the Right Road, classic motoring music. We've been dipping into this one over the last few weeks. Some great, everything from swing to sweet to novelty to completely balmy and most things in between on this little collection. This one I think is fairly swingy one way or another. Ronnie Gennaro with Jack Payne, One Way Street.
bobby on the beat tells you don't turn back, just follow your track. It's a one-way street, now we'll all agree. 'Tisn't what it used to be, 'cause you must go east when you want to go west on the one-way street. Cabbies waving, everyone's raving, traffic's in a roar. Horses balking, people are squawking, wasn't like this before. It's one-way street, where the bobby on the beat says you can't turn back, just follow your track. Can't go fast, you gotta go slow. Can't get past when the lights said go. It's a one-way street.
Great symbol to end there. It's a one-way street from our motoring collection. Ronnie Gennada on the vocals, Jack Payne and his orchestra providing the backing. And if you've ever seen the film Squibs from 1935, and I have to say I don't think I ever have, but if you have, then you might recognise it because it actually appears in that film. We'll have to look out for it now, isn't it? Great name for a film, Squibs. Is a squib a young pigeon? Or am I making that up? Or is that a squab? Well, that might be a squab, mightn't it? Or is that a squad? No, that's the Squadronaires. Oh, no, forget it. All far too complicated. Here's Nelson Riddle and his orchestra. Let's do it. Let's fall in love. Very nice too. Effortless. Swings along without any means of propulsion at all, it seems. Nelson Riddle, always the mark of a good composer and arranger, that when it all sounds so easy. Meaning, of course, that it's not actually easy at all. It's just someone very, very good doing it and very, very good playing it, as indeed was the case there. Nelson Riddle and his orchestra. Let's do it. Let's fall in love. Great middle name, which I didn't realise. Nelson Riddle, his middle name was Smock. I mean, Smock, is that a name? And maybe it's something American. I'm not aware of it being used in Britain as a name. A smock in Britain, of course, is, well, it's a smock, isn't it? The things that you used to see yokels wear. Don't see many of them. Or painters, perhaps, smocks. But something of an old word. You don't hear that often or see that often, I guess. But he was actually Nelson Smock Riddle. And his career, had a great career, really, 40-odd years or so, mid-40s right the way to the 1980s, and worked with, you name it, really, Frank Sinatra, Ella Fitzgerald, Nat King Cole, Judy Garland, Dean Martin, Peggy Lee, Johnny Mathis, Rosemary Clooney. Yeah, you get the gist. He was way up there with all of them, and had a good sort of jazz heritage as well. He was on the Rosemary Clooney show in the late 1950s, and then in the 60s he orchestrated 2 albums which you might be familiar with if you're a fan of Ella Fitzgerald. Ella Fitzgerald and Ella Swings Brightly with Nelson, and Ella Swings Gently. Ellie, yeah, I like it. Ella Swings Gently with Nelson. And they also did the Gershwin Songbook. Great albums. If you've never heard any of those, dip into any of those anytime and it'll instantly pick your mood up, I think. Just wonderful stuff. That combi of Nelson Riddle and the wonderful voice of Ella Fitzgerald. A bit of a match made in heaven. Well, that's my feeling in any case. You can't go wrong with Ella. I almost played some earlier on, actually, but we'll save it for next week. We'll see if we can play a bit of Nelson next week. For now, My Baby Just Cares For Me. Wolf Phillips and his Swing Stars.
When an irresistible force such as you meets an old immovable object like me, you can bet as sure as you live Something's gotta give, something's gotta give, something's gotta give. When an irrepressible smile such as yours warms an old implacable heart such as mine, don't say no, because I insist. Somewhere, somehow, someone's gonna get kissed. So on guard, who knows what the fates have in store from their vast, mysterious sky. I'll try hard, ignoring those lips I adore, but how long can anyone try? Fight, 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 fight it with all of our might. Chances are some heavenly star-spangled night we'll find out as sure as we live. Something's gotta give, something's gotta give, something's gotta give. The fates have in store from their vast, mysterious sky. I'll try hard, ignoring those lips I adore, but how long can anyone try? Fight it with all of our might. Chances are some heavenly star-spangled night we'll find out as sure as we live. When there's a meeting of cosmic forces, you can't separate them with 10 wild horses. Face it, face it, face it, something's gotta give.
Oh, big ending, liking it. Mel Torme, from one we haven't actually played before. I've just taken the wrapper off it this very day. I didn't even need to blow the dust off it because it's something that arrived relatively recently from our friends at Avid Jazz, who bring out these wonderful collections, usually under the album 2 CDs, under the banner of 4 classic albums of whoever the artist might be. Ahmad Jamal, Al Cohn, that was another Avid one. Mel Torme in this case, and this is one of their more recent releases. And thanks ever so much to them, as always, for supplying so much of this great music. Certainly at the more modern end of the sweet and swing spectrum, although some of the older stuff falls into their category as well. Mel Torme, 4 classic albums, and this one is Mel Torme Sings Fred Astaire, as you might possibly have gathered. And some great liner notes from Joseph Maragni, who says recording a new album with Mel is at the same time very easy and difficult. The easy part is working out the details in the actual recording. He's such a consummate musician and great taste. It usually makes a difficult aspect an easy one, whilst almost guaranteeing a musical treat. Well, yeah, I think that's true, isn't it? The difficult part is dreaming up a theme for the album that will be a suitable vehicle for the talent and style that Mel possesses. He says this new Mel Torme record, well, new when it came out in any case, not when it first came out, is one solution to the easy and difficult aspects mentioned above. The idea is to give Mel his versions of the old and new songs associated with the ageless Fred Astaire. Naturally, this idea doesn't get in the way of good music, as Fred Astaire has been and still is, not anymore sadly, but he was at the time of writing the liner notes for this album, justly famous for being able to pick up and perform songs of lasting value in quality. In fact, almost as lasting and full of entertainment value as he is himself. Well, I wouldn't disagree with that. Great voice he had, didn't he, Mel Torme? And I don't know, we must have featured him before on Sweet and Swing at some stage, but if we have, it's quite some time back, because I can't remember it. However, having now taken the wrapper off, I'm going to keep it in the Maestro music bag, and we'll dip in and out of that over the next few weeks in the run-up to Christmas, I think. Why not? Great voice, lovely sound. Enjoying that muchly. What can we squeeze in before the end? We must be able to do a little bit something. How about some piano music? Piano playtime. You can't beat a bit of piano playtime, and you certainly can't beat Billy Mayerl. Wasn't all just about the Marigolds, was it? Billy Mayerl at the piano, lovely touch he had, really light and very sort of, again, the old maestro, I think, definitely had a touch of the Billy Mayerls about him in that sort of nicely ornamented style. Quite sort of flowery in a lovely way with some lovely little runs, and just always very musical though. And also using that Charlie Quinn style of a bit of medley work. Ace of clubs and an ace of hearts. That's about it for another week. Where does the time go? Before you know it, it'll be Christmas. Oh, did I say it? I did. Look after yourselves. Same time, same place, next week. See you there. Make it a date. Cheerio.